My buddy up in Wyoming hit me up to go back down to the 5 miles of hell. The forecast showed 30-mile-an-hour winds with 50-mile-an-hour gusts, and so who could possibly say no to that? Delmar and Mike and BJ and Tyson with Tom and Brighton drove from Wyoming. We met them along the way and met up at the trailhead in San Rafael. This is a great group of guys, and we just have fun together, and riding the trail under any circumstances is a lot of fun. But on this trip, I had 5 personal objectives. Number 1, I wanted to ride the trials bike on a trail. I've been riding the trials bike around, but gosh, I never drive more than about 100 yards away from the pickup truck, which is, I guess, arguably what a trials bike is for. But I wanted to take it out and actually run it somewhere. It forces me to deal with things like gas management, actual trail conditions, and I have a seat. And I kind of needed to justify the fact that I have a seat for the trials bike. So I put the seat on the trials bike and did the trail and just had an absolute blast with it. And here's what I learned. First of all, the trails in the San Rafael area, specifically the Red Trail and the 5 Miles of Hell, are pretty bony. But on a trials bike, it's almost child's play. Like, under normal circumstances on a big bike, I spend most of my time looking for the path of least resistance. On the trials bike, it's almost exactly the opposite. I find myself scanning the perimeter for something bigger, taller, challenging, and more gnarly.
Way more traction on that than
On the big bikes, when you ride through here, you're mostly looking for the path of least resistance. On this one, it's like, oh, let's go. Oh, there's all these big things, and you just
you make it
tackle them.
whatever,
Like, why doesn't the trail go up there?
whatever challenge you want of it.
The seat worked out great. Not that you sit down a whole lot anyway, but at the times that I needed to, I could, just to rest the legs a little bit. And in the end, gas actually wasn't a problem. I'll tell you, we rode about 16 miles round trip. It's about 4 miles from the parking lot to the trailhead. And then when you fork off on the Red Trail, it's about 4.5 miles from there to the point where we turned around. At that point, you can make a full-on loop and come out through the orange or the blue or whatever trail. But on a trials bike, that's not a whole lot of fun. So we doubled back, came back on the Red Trail, the same 4.5 miles or so, and then the 4 miles back to the parking lot. So that's what, 17, 18 miles round trip? And I didn't need any spare gas at all. I had put a quart of fuel in my backpack in case I needed it, but the half-gallon tank on the gas was enough. I didn't measure to see what was left. I think I'd pretty well burned it all up, but I never put it on reserve, and it lasted the whole time. So gas management wasn't a problem. Personal objective number 2, to complete the entire 5 miles of hell on the enduro bike. Last time I was out here, I cut out early on the first escape route with my 2 kids. And this time I wanted to complete the whole thing. Now, a couple of tidbits about the 5 miles of hell. First of all, it could be argued that it is 5 miles of hellish trail, but the trail itself is 7.5 miles long. So I don't exactly know where the name comes from. Add to that the 4 miles from the parking lot to the trailhead, and the roughly 8 miles from the end of the 5 miles of hell back to the parking lot, and you've got yourself much closer to a 20-mile trip than what the 5 miles of hell name might imply. Secondly, while some might call 5 miles of hell the most difficult trail in Utah, I don't think that's accurate. I think it's one of the more challenging, grueling trails, and it's probably the most technical trail in Utah. But I don't know that it's necessarily the most difficult. It is, however, a whole heck of a lot of fun and very challenging. And part of the challenge is how physically and even mentally exhausting it can be. You might ask yourself, with maybe less skills on a dirt bike, can I complete the 5 miles of hell? The answer is yes. If you've got enough patience and you've got maybe enough help and you've got the stamina, you can get through it just fine. It might take a while, but you can do it. I found the thing was just completely exhausting. I had moments where my body told my fingers to pull the clutch in and my fingers were simply not responding. Those situations generally didn't end well. But nonetheless, point is, yeah, anybody can get through it. It's very technical, and sure, it's challenging. It's probably not the most difficult. And you need to plan on 7.5 miles of bumpy, rigorous, difficult, grueling even, challenging terrain. So anyway, this time I wanted to complete the whole thing, and I wanted to do it on the enduro bike. Why did I want to do it on the enduro bike? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, because, as I stated just a minute ago, doing it on the trials bike is kind of cheating. I mean, sure, there are some challenges in there, but mostly it's child's play on a trials bike. Secondly, since I've been messing around on the trials bike and trying to learn some more finesse type skills on the motorcycle, I really wanted to see if those would translate over to the enduro bike. Spoiler, yeah, they do. And finally, I had some obstacles that I really wanted to clear on the enduro bike, which brings me to the next 3 personal objectives. Number 3, I wanted to clear the stacked records obstacle, and not just clear it, but clear it on a very specific line. There are probably 3 main lines on this obstacle. The primary, maybe the remedial or basic line, goes straight up, requires a bit of a turn at the top, and while you can potentially finesse that, almost everybody will dab at that point and maybe even lift the bike to turn it to proceed across the rim. I ran that line last time. Most people I was with ran that line, and it's a fine line, but I wanted to do something just a little bit more aggressive. A couple of the guys in our group like the line that involves going past the obstacle and doubling back and traversing across the front. That line's fine too. It's not terribly aggressive. It also requires a little bit of a bike flip after you get up there to be able to traverse across the top of the ridgeline. The line that I wanted to take is a little more aggressive. It requires finessing the bike from the bottom across a couple of dips and then climbing nearly straight up the thing. Now, as most 2-dimensional renderings of a 3-dimensional object would do, the camera tends to flatten this thing out, but you get a bit of a perspective as you see Jerem walking around on the obstacle here. It helps understand the magnitude of the thing. Now, I'm not trying to build it up like it's the biggest thing ever and the greatest thing since sliced bread, but understand that the video really never does quite do it justice. This is a fun obstacle to play around on. I kind of enjoyed it. I finally did clear it, and I'm happy that I managed to accomplish that little objective right there. Objective number 4. I wanted to double blip the arrow wall. Now, I don't know what this thing is called, and it stands out to me only because it's one of the bigger faces that require some kind of a double blip or otherwise compression action on the bike to clear. That is, if you decide to take it up the gut. Now, you can take it around the edge, and you'll see Jerem, as he approaches, he takes it around the right side, which is plenty technical enough on its own. But I really wanted to take this thing right up the gut. Now, unfortunately, my video camera went out at this time. I guess the battery had gone dead right through this section, and so I have no footage of this. But I was thrilled to not only clear this thing, but do it without pausing or stopping to think about it. That wasn't intentional. I kind of figured I would gather my wits before I faced the obstacle. But you don't have a whole lot of choice because, rather unexpectedly, the approach is all sand. And the sand is just enough to throw you off kilter, get you out of balance, compromise your traction. And so I just kind of kept on moving through the thing. Luckily, right at the base of the obstacle is rocky enough that you can get some grab on the rear tire, pop the front end in the air, bounce the tire off the wall, and clear the obstacle. So yeah, I was thrilled to clear that one. Maybe next time I'll actually get some video footage of it. And finally, personal objective number 5, I wanted to clear the Crux. The Crux is a beast, and there are several lines that are used to get up and over it. The most common and kind of the remedial line involves going to the right, flipping the bike around, traversing back across the front, and up over the top that way. The main line, or the hero line, goes right up the center, and God, you can see in some of these videos where people have gone to great lengths to stack some rocks at the approach, which frankly is a little bit disappointing. Not a fan. And I'd prefer to run the trail as it lay, but, you know, to each their own, I guess. We even considered removing all of these rocks that had been placed, but in the end left them as they were. So I made several attempts right up the gut, and every attempt ended the same way.
Exact same thing. It's gone over that way, didn't it?
I hit the biggest wall in the whole thing.
Well, that was just because I got jostled off sideways on the approach.
You're that far away from having a really good Charlie horse.
I know, I was like trying to video but not die.
Again? Want another shot at this?
I kind of do.
Look me in the eye. He wants another shot.
The pancake, or stacking direct, or just...
So let's just go over there. Yeah, I'm fine.
I made it the second
It's funny, that last little deal throws you one direction or another, and that's what tells you what direction you're going up from there on out. Ah, all right. Oh, son of a...
I thought that was your finger that was like that.
Might have been. All right. I can't... Okay.
So at this point, I guess 4 out of 5 ain't bad. However, I still really want to clear the Crux. And I have some new ideas on how to do it. Specifically, and the biggest change will be a tire. I've been running whatever tire came on this bike, and it's fine for most things, but it is definitely not a gummy tire. And after messing around on the trials bike and seeing what kind of traction I can get out of a low PSI gummy style tire, I'm quite confident that having something like that on here will make a significant difference in some of those more difficult obstacles like the Crux, where you require quite a bit of traction on that rear tire to be able to claw through some of the more tricky segments. So that's the plan. If you've got an idea on the best gummy tire to put on here to help me with every little ounce of assistance that I can possibly get to get up over that Crux, let me know. I gotta tell you, that is quickly becoming one of not only my favorite trail rides in Utah, but it's becoming one of my favorite things to do. It is so challenging. The sense of accomplishment after getting up over some of those obstacles is amazing. The camaraderie associated with going through with a group of guys and just having fun with it, stopping at each one and getting out the camera and filming everybody going over it is an absolute riot. So look, how fast can a guy get through it? I don't even know. I know there's some guys doing it really fast. I haven't even attempted. To me, you just make a day of it. You enjoy the time out with buddies. You stop and have a granola bar at every meaningful peak, and you enjoy the challenge together. So I'm looking forward to hitting it again. If I can figure out some tires to put on here, maybe I can get just enough of an edge to climb on up over some of those more difficult obstacles. That's the plan. Hey, it's a lot of fun. See you out there.